Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wildboy94. I hope you're doing well today. I have a book review here for a Star Wars Disney canon novel, and I have only read a couple of these, including Heir to the Jedi and Lords of the Sith, and Lords of the Sith was better than Heir to the Jedi, but Heir to the Jedi was horrible. That's one of the worst books, Star Wars or otherwise, that I've ever read in my life. Terrible book, don't read that shit. But this book here I was looking forward to because I love the show that it's tied into called Star Wars Visions. This actually starts out as a small adaptation of the first ever episode of that show. And Star Wars Visions, in case you don't know what it is very good if you love the early 2000s Clone Wars cartoon that I grew up on before Revenge of the Sith came out. Very, very, very good show. This is a very anime-style show. It does kind of like an Elseworlds, what if, not completely canon, timeline-wise storyline telling, and I loved it. I thought it was really good as a show for the most part. There might have been two segments of that show I didn't like all that much, but everything else was pretty powerful, especially the first ever short this book is based on. This is a novel that's about 330 pages long, called Star Wars. It has a couple of different titles, by the way. Star Wars Ronin Visions novel, or Star Wars Visions Ronin. I don't know what to call it. I'm just going to call it Ronin Visions, or Star Wars Visions Ronin. I don't know. It's written by Emma Miko Candon, and I love the cover art here, by the way. I borrowed this from the library. I had never heard of it before. I borrowed quite a bit of Star Wars novels, and I was hoping it would be good. It proved me wrong immediately. The best part of this book is the beginning of it when it's adapting that little short that we had from Star Wars Visions that was the basis of this idea. Disney, let's talk about them for a moment. I fucking hate Disney Star Wars. I like Rise of Skywalker's probably my favorite of the movies at this point from the sequels. Rogue One is good. Force Awakens is good. Solo and Last Jedi are horrible. I don't even watch the TV shows because they're so damn bad. I just watch clips online. Disney doesn't know what they're doing. They just put Star Wars constantly in the hands of people who don't know what they're doing and don't give a shit about Star Wars and pretend that they love Star Wars, like Rian Johnson, like Emma Miko Candon. I don't blame her entirely, but all this bullshit in the author's note here saying she's a dedicated Star Wars fan, you can read this book and you could tell it's a fucking lie. Leslie Headland is another great example of somebody you can tell already is not a dedicated Star Wars fan, does not understand it, doesn't get it. Stop fucking lying to people like myself who are hardcore Star Wars people who've barely read any of the books and I know more than you. Okay, I'm sorry. It's not about knowledge, but it's more about don't lie to people who know the material well enough to call you a liar, you know? Star Wars Ronin started out strong with that adaptation I talked about. And basically what it's about is a guy that we just kind of know as the Ronin. We don't really know his real name. No one seems to have remembered his real name. I don't even remember if we even got an actual name from him, maybe for like 1 second. It didn't matter though. He was called the Ronin, and basically he is a samurai who fights in this small village against this, he isn't from the village, he just fights this witch lady who is a Sith, who has like an umbrella lightsaber thing, which was cool in the Visions novel, and here the way the writing style is of the book from Emma, it's fucking awful. But the adaptation part, storytelling-wise and fighting-wise, was really cool. Now, in that Vision short, we were under the impression that he kills her in a fight around a waterfall, which was badass. And the novel here decides to progress the idea of making the book into a cat and mouse chase. She's not actually dead somehow, some way. Everybody who gets stabbed in Star Wars through the chest, except for Qui-Gon Jinn, dies. I don't understand why. Disney has never explained why. You see that constantly in the Ahsoka show, with characters from Rebels being stabbed and then somehow surviving. Why? Nobody knows. It's canon-breaking nonsense, and it really deviates away from what a lightsaber can do, what it's powered by, and what it actually is. Anyway, it's a cat and mouse chasing game, where basically the witch, as she's called, we actually get her name, I don't care enough to even bother saying it, she is chasing after him in a revenge, but she's a Sith. She didn't realize that he was a Sith as well, but the Ronin is not really a Sith. He has a little droid that he keeps as like a buddy. I've never seen a Sith do that. Darth Vader didn't go find fucking R2-D2 and carry him around. He didn't do that with C-3PO either, and he was buddies with both of them. He created C-3PO. No, this Ronin character just tries to escape, tries to go away. He didn't really want to get involved in the village's business with this witch lady, but now he is, and now she's coming after him, and he meets people along his travels in a very manga, anime-style storytelling way, but in a slice of life way too, which is the biggest problem with modern entertainment. No one gives a shit about your boring ass slice of life story. Nobody cares about that. Stop making everything into a slice of life story. Nobody likes that shit that likes action, adventure, fantasy, or sci-fi, like myself, or Star Wars fans. You know, this name right here. Have you ever seen a Star Wars movie that's about fucking slice of life? No, because it wouldn't appeal to anybody, because it's not what Star Wars is. You can do it with shorts, you can do it with novels, but people aren't going to like it, more than likely. If there are hardcore people that love Star Wars, they're not going to like that. So anyway, the Ronin is on this run from this witch that he thought he killed, and he meets different people along his travels, and they all irritate the shit out of me. Basically, the only character I like in this book is the Ronin, but he's kind of wasted by about 100 pages in. I just don't care anymore from that point on about any of these people, including the Ronin, who we have mysteries surrounding him, but we never really get a lot of good answers, especially by the finale. The weird shit we do towards the end of the book was just embarrassing. I hated it. The Ronin, by the way, hears voices, and I'm assuming this voice is supposed to be the Force, but it's like not the Force. It's not just there spiritually that you look to and you pray to and meditate to and whatever. It's not like that. It like antagonizes you. And I never got an answer in this book about what the fuck was going on there, but other characters start to have that problem too. They're not just schizophrenic, they just have a voice talking shit to them all the time, you know? Also, the way that this book describes the witch when she has to get a new lightsaber and talks about how it works so much more smoothly than what she had before. Now, I understand Disney approached kyber crystals in a very different way from the original Legends canon of novels, which I prefer, obviously, like most Star Wars dedicated people like myself. The way we cover how a lightsaber works in here, and how there's almost like a living personality to lightsabers, not that they talk or think, but that they might or might not agree with their person holding them, who have created them, that's fucking stupid. When you say some shit like that, you're telling me at that point you don't understand what a lightsaber is, how it works. Now, you could justify this in this particular book because this doesn't have to fall on the timeline. There is no timeline listing in this novel saying, hey, this is before Phantom Menace or before whatever, the Old Republic, I don't know. This is just kind of an Elseworlds what-if type of tale, and that's fine. You can justify the lightsaber shit with that, but it's not assisted by the shitty writing here. This is a book that was written by an author, and this is proven, by the way, that this is her first ever novel. Disney, why are you handing off shit like Star Wars to people who have never done something like this? Why are you doing that? You do it with comics, you do it with novels, you do it with so many people who have no business writing Star Wars or being involved in the creative process because you have no respect of these properties. Just like you didn't with Marvel Comics, we see what happened with them. Nobody reads that shit anymore. You see what's happening with these people who want to save money so deeply for a company that's failing because of its bullshit. It's dying out for a reason. And books like this are a great example why. This is an awful book when it comes to the writing style. Emma could write a decent book if she wanted to, but my problem comes in with the fact that this book is trying to be so poetic that it personalizes lightsabers. It doesn't make any fucking sense with the spaceship logic or anything. If Ronin sees in the beginning of the book a spaceship in the sky before the witch shows up and lands, he calls it a vessel. You know how many times I had to reread this to understand what she was talking, or what he was talking about? Because I've never just heard somebody without context clues in a book. This is the first time ever that I think I've read a novel that was published by a big publisher too in this case, that didn't have context clues enough to surround around something to explain what it was. If I had never heard a spaceship called a vessel before, I wouldn't know what the fuck was happening in here. I mean, seriously, it's that kind of problem with this book. It's never clear about anything. It's deliberately confusing. It's deliberately artsy-fartsy trash, and it ruins it. Star Wars is not like that, despite how you view the Visions TV show, which is very well crafted by people who understand Star Wars. The people that they brought in to make that from the anime creative process, they get it. They understand what they had to do and what Star Wars is. They get it deeply. This is not Star Wars. This is fucking crap, and there's a reason why you don't see more Visions novels. This is bad, and I don't entirely blame Emma Miko Candon. This had no business being made. Plain and simple. This should have been a trunk novel that was never published by Disney. they're useless. Disney doesn't care about Star Wars. This is a phenomenal example of that, and it really pisses me off because of a character like the Ronin, who is awesome. He's a badass character, and I wanted to see more of him. Instead, we surround him with other characters I hadn't gotten to yet, like the Traveler. The Traveler is non-binary. We never outright say it, but it's an alien, I assume, that wears a helmet or whatever, or a mask to cover its identity. What? But every paragraph of this book is so terribly trying to be poetic that it will talk about this character that's just called the Traveler or Fox as they, them, with the pronouns thing. And it's so goddamn confusing as you read the book that you can't entirely make out who it's talking about, which is the problem with the non-binary words being used in paragraphs in the English language. You can't do it. You can't do it in Spanish, and you can't do it in English properly. It doesn't fit grammar-wise into what we're trying to say and write. That's no offense, not trying to trash non-binary people. I don't care. Do what you're gonna do, whatever. But what I will say is that it's physically not able to fit into novels. You can't make it work in the writing process. You can do it day-to-day life, I don't care. I don't give a shit. But this book proves the fact that you can't do that and you can't do it well, especially when you try to write a poetic novel. It just makes people like myself snicker at it because it's so fucking horrible. In the writing, it's so try-hard, you know, and I know this author apparently is non-binary or whatever, but that proves my point that you can't do that shit in a novel because you've made it too confusing by trying to make this so artsy-fartsy. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit into the book. It doesn't work, period. So what I'm trying to say is, obviously, The Ronin is a terrible book. It's about a really badass short adapted into a novel that had no business being a novel because it's not good in this form. It's great as the short if you haven't seen it, and I recommend Star Wars Visions in general, but this novel is fucking crap, man, and I feel bad about saying that to an extent, but I also don't because of how bad it is. It was a waste of my time, and after the first 100 or so pages, really after the first 80, I hated it so deeply I was like, I'm not reading every word of this, and I had to skim a little bit, so there might be some details I missed, but I don't care. And you know what, I'm going to say this too, from now on, if I pick up a book like this and I fucking hate it, I'm not going to read it. I started reading Dune by Frank Herbert. I read 100 pages and I fucking hate it, so I put it down. I'm not going to finish that book. Might as well just give up on that. I already put up a review on Goodreads saying how bad it was and how much I hated that messy-ass piece of shit. But this is a great example, too, of a piece of shit I should not have finished, and I almost did not. There were other books that I borrowed from the library that I did not realize were later sequels in a series, like this book here from Claudia Gray, Star Wars The High Republic, The Fallen Star. I borrowed this as well, and I was going to read it, but then I found out there were so many other books that I couldn't read first, so I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to read them. Needless to say, this will probably be the last, maybe one of the last few out of my collection that I read from Star Wars, Disney canon. You know, I actually bought some newer Star Wars books like the Coruscant, however you say the name, Coruscant Nights series. It's a trilogy of books. I bought that from the Legends canon this past weekend, and I can't wait to read those. They look badass. Apparently they're right after the prequels ended and whatever. They look really cool. So I'm hoping those will be good. But this particular book, Ronin, it's horrible, dude. Do not read this shit. Don't waste your time on this piece of crap read. This had no business being published, like I said. If I had to rate Star Wars Visions Ronin or Star Wars Ronin a Visions novel, whatever it's called on a 5-star basis, I'd give it like a 1 out of 5 stars. I wanted to give it a 2, but I can't go that high. There's no plot here. That's a big issue. This is a slice of life cat and mouse game sometimes. But usually just slice of life, rambling, meandering, going from place to place, with so many characters around the Ronin that he never wanted to be around to begin with, has no reason to stick around with either, and they just all irritate the shit out of me. By the end of the book, even the Ronin irritates the shit out of me. So anyway, what do you think about the book? If you've read it, do you love it, do you hate it? I'd love to hear everything you have to say about it down in the comments section down below. Disney, stop fucking with Star Wars. If you keep doing this, people like myself will just never talk about you ever again. We'll just avoid you and talk about the good old-fashioned days with the good stuff we had from Lucas, despite Lucas being a traitor now. But Lucas knew what he was doing. He knew his product. He knew what he wanted to do with Star Wars itself. And there's some damn good books out there, man. If you guys haven't read, like, the Kenobi book or Luke Skywalker and the Shadow... I can't say the title. Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mendor, I think is what it's called. Those are phenomenal books I really, really loved. There's so many great comics and everything out there. There's so much out there you could take in and really love, and this is not one of them. Don't waste your time on this. If you surprisingly saw this at your library or something, or at a book sale, don't waste your money. Don't waste your money on this piece of shit. It's a turd, like most Star Wars canon novels that I've read, or Disney canon novels I've read. They have just been one fucking bad book after another. I don't think I've read a single novel from them that I've liked. So anyway, what did you think about the book? Put your thoughts and comments down below. 1 out of 5 stars from yours truly. Thank you all. God bless you. Catch you later, and goodbye.